All right. We're going to move on to segment 2, the future of tabletop RPGs, trends in game designs. And we're going to start with Malachi in this one. What recent trends in game mechanics or storytelling have you noticed in new tabletop RPG releases?
Okay, I'm going to get a little bit spicy right now.
Uh-oh.
I think the OGL has hurt that a little bit.
Okay, so as far as trends, you think that it's hurt? The OGL is a trend that you've noticed that's hurt?
No.
I'm confused.
That the OGL is stagnating the hobby a little bit.
Oh, okay. I 100% agree with you.
I mean, first off, I'm going to pull this out. One thing that I know, there's one trend I noticed. There's a really neat mechanic with the Essence 20 system that Renegade has.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do pluses. They add dice you get to roll. It's a D20 plus 1 or 2 more dice.
So kind of like the old Alternity system?
I think so. It's been a while since I read that, like probably when it came out.
Okay.
You know, Savage Worlds with their cards, I think that was a great idea. But when you look at a lot of what's out there, Tales of the Valiant is a knockoff of 5e. Everybody was doing, Pathfinder. The first one was a knockoff of 3e.
Mm-hmm.
We go to Fate. We go with our licensed stuff, like Dresden Files was a Fate game. And Avatar The Last Airbender, they used Fate for that, if I remember right. I don't really see anybody trying to be original or even take something and really run with it like Palladium did with their system. You can see this, how similar it is to the old school D&D games, but Kevin really took that system and ran with it and made it his own.
So as far as innovation goes, how far back are you going with this? Because I would say, it's not technically an innovation because it was out beforehand. Something that's been popularized thanks to 5e, which they're treating as innovation, and I think you kind of have to because it's popular, is advantage, disadvantage.
Yeah. That was, when you look at core 5e, great mechanic, great idea, did a great job with it. You look at current 5e, it's overused, it's abused. It was something that you either have or didn't have. But now it's so easy to get. You better off going with there's actually the way Dragonbane does it. Where you add up your boons and your banes and you get a total. That's how many dice you roll.
Right, which is a little different than the D&D one, which is either you have it or you don't.
Yeah, they've gotten to the point with 5e that you're better off having that rule in there.
Okay. All right. So how do you think, since you mentioned the OGL, how do you think that changes in player expectations have influenced the approach to game design?
Well, I mean, it's like a D&D, you roll a D20, you add numbers. You're going to be expecting that when you see that, that the 5e logo that's compatible to 5e. And if you was it Cepheus? That's like the Traveler clone. That's going to be a 2d6 based system. There, you are, when you see those logos on the products, you're going to know what you're getting into.
I guess what I'm asking is in the modern trends, have you seen any the modern players have a different expectation of games than say what we did back when we were playing, AD&D or Palladium, whatever. What else did we play back then? GDW games and so forth.
Actually, from what I've seen with the modern gamers, they want to cram everything into 5e.
Okay. I might come back to that one because I don't want to answer it myself yet. I want to get to let everybody else answer the main question for sure because I've got some thoughts on that. But okay, Patty, same question for you.
Much like what Malachi said, I have
hold on a second. What was that? Were you talking to me?
No, sorry.
Okay. So what recent trends in game mechanics or storytelling have you noticed in new tabletop RPG releases?
hacks. Everything is just a hack of another game, which is mostly just a hack of the game that we all used to love, our first love. And I don't know, as somebody who has created games from the ground up with some small success, limited success. I don't. It's the problem is that it really comes down to familiarity, right? So when you ask what are the trends, it's much less of what the trend is, so much as what trend has stuck around for too long. Like what Malachi had said is, it's so much easier to create for a product that everybody already has. The familiarity is something that reaches out and shakes people's hands and pulls them in. So when we see like one of my biggest letdowns was, again, I was talking about the Iron Kingdoms RPG, which was a fantastic role-playing game system from the ground up that was different. It was a D6 based game that wasn't much like anything else I had played before, and it was familiar with me because I played the war game a lot. And then right before 1D was announced, Privateer Press decided to drop their proprietary system to make a 5e supplement. And a lot of us hardcore Privateer Press fans were like, why would you do that? We're like coming to like the fourth turning as far as 5th edition and its life, shelf life is going. You're just killing your IKRPG system. And that's certainly been the case. And yet they go trudging on with that 5e compatible stamp. So that's the trend. Meanwhile, I've been working on a game system for a long time that is totally my own. It's not a hack, but it seems like less people are interested in that because they have all of these other books, settings, supplements, modules, adventures that are all based around the core D20 idea. I'm extremely happy that as far as the brand warfare goes, whether you love it or hate it, Shadow Dark's emergent success and people like Chubby Funster and Black Lodge Games coming out with very successful supplements for that game, it bodes well, right? I think we're chipping away at the rocky edifice, the marble that TSR built that WotC took over and has just solidified sludge all over this wonderful statue, right? We're chipping away at that. And we're revealing the art and the stuff that really made this hobby worth getting into. I'm very excited that that's happening, and I don't think it could have happened to a better person. From what I could tell, Arcane Library Kelsey has been very supportive of the people that are making third-party content for her game, and that speaks volumes. Lord Mateus had even said that the best thing that we could do at this point is to rally behind our favorite creators and try to make third-party supplements to help grow that breadth. That's something that I've tried to do a lot with Crimson Dragon Slayer and Chalt. A lot of my books are based around that, as well as the Red Room's Wretched series. But those don't have the immediate breakout success that something like Shadow Dark had. And Kelsey deserves that because she had been making modules for, I think 5e for quite some time. You're right.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's the ray gun of Dungeons and Dragons who, read up a bunch or watched a bunch of Critical Role and decided to come up with a new game. This is somebody who's like dyed in the wool, a gamer personality, and
old school gamer.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see where Shadow Dark takes the indie scene and what new names are able to grow with that IP. But it doesn't happen unless there's more people you can get to that side. And I'm certainly I'm no stranger to that, being the guy that publishes to Giant Slayer Games and streams on Rumble. Like, I mean, it's a tug and war to try to pull people off of what's familiar. Get out of that abusive relationship, for crying out loud. You got to get out of there. I'm very used to beating my head against the desk, like trying to get somebody to cross that bridge that I'm trying so hard to build.
Okay. You answered your follow-up question again. I don't know why you keep doing that, but okay.
Patty's psychic.
Yes, psychotic, psychic, one of the two, whatever. So we'll drop down to Timothy Farrelly and ask you the same question here. What recent trends in game mechanics or storytelling? I don't know why I use the word storytelling there. Usually I fix that. Have you noticed in new tabletop RPG releases?
I'm going to disagree with Malachi. I think the OGL is not a bad thing. I think it's helpful. Number one, it gives companies the ability to tap into audiences, because we know that 5e is a very good entry level system. So it allows them to get people in quickly, and it allows them to generate revenue for other stuff. But there are other multitude of other products out there that Malachi himself mentioned: the Renegade system, Savage Worlds, Fate, and the supporting properties for those. Savage Worlds picked up Rifts. That was a freaking boon right there. So, 5e is the 800-pound gorilla, but it's a low entry level that people can get in. And as it does well, it still pushes other people to do something different. We might see a resurgence of the D6 system. But like Patty was making his own game system. The people they're out there. They're making the games, and they can be found.
I would say the problem with that, though, is that they're being drowned out by the 5e nonsense. And if you look at the writing quality of a lot of the 5e stuff, and I'm not even talking about pronoun crap that annoys me, or passive voice versus active voice. I'm just talking straight up can't punctuate, can't capitalize letters, and so forth. I've seen a lot of crap come out of the 5e realm that gets more views and more looks than, say, something like what Patty's doing that's actually potentially innovative and thought-provoking, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true. But it also, when you see that kind of garbage, it pushes you to do something on your own.
I wish that was the case for humanity, though. That's the problem with humanity. With humanity, it turns into start accepting crap. Why play something new when I can read this crap over there? I don't have time. TM Blackball. I am going to get your advanced version of the game when it comes out, though. I promise you that. I'm also going to, instead of having a follow-up question here, because you guys hit on a very similar topic here, and I want to chime in on this. Yep, I'm the host, but I'm still chiming in. I actually generally agree with Malachi on the OGL side of it, and let me explain why. It's like philosophy. Everybody that has half a brain knows that philosophy is bullshit. It's just nothing but taking a bunch of crap, throwing it at a wall, and see what sticks. And that's what a lot of this nonsense, the OGL nonsense, is as well. It's what made World of Warcraft destroy the MMORPG scene. It became so popular that everybody had to clone it, and nobody wanted to play anything else because nothing else could compete with it. Maybe Eve, that's one of rare examples, but then you could say Pathfinder or Call of Cthulhu is like the competition in that case, right? It, as far as I'm concerned, and it did everything wrong about the MMORPG hobby. It took away the social aspects of it. Dungeon finders and instances and letting the casual player succeed. No. Now, is that good for money? Yes. Is that good for the hobby, for that niche hobby? No. And that's what 5e and OGL type stuff did. Yeah, it allowed a lot of ingenuity to come out there, but it also focused everybody onto this one way of playing that even now, sure, they're on 5e instead of 3e, but makes it really difficult for other folks to jump in because, oh no, I'll just play 5e. I'll just play. I mean, I'm not against Shadow Dark. I don't have it, but to me, from what I heard of it, sounds like it's just a revised 5e clone. So I have zero interest in it whatsoever. All props to her for making it. You go, girl, whatever. But I'm just saying, for me, I don't want anything to do. Hell, I don't even want D20s. I see D20 now and I sigh.
Yeah,
I can't get that.
But that's pretty much all I needed to say about that. So, I mean, and the one other comment I wanted to make that I wrote down here is that I think Patty was saying that people were making things 5e compatible. Look, Bessem Big Eye Small Mouth, we had Mark McKinnon on, and we asked him, to his face, why are you doing this? Why do you make this 5e anime when you have your own system, your own game? You should be proud of your own stuff. And to be fair, he is. But he's like, and he said the one word, money. He said, thank you for your honesty, Mark McKinnon. But that's the type of crap that drives me crazy, because that means that what people have recognized that, well, if I want to be successful, I got to go where the money is.
And one thing that I remember from the 3.5 boom was Alderac. I'm a huge L5R fan, just the Alderac era, and I continue getting the books, even though they were making them with D20 and the roll and keep stats inside. And what I see hurting right there is, you have people that you have to fit 2 sets of stats, 2 sets of rules into one book, and you're hurting your imagination, your creativity within your world by doing that, by catering to 2 different systems.
Sure.
And you end up stagnating it. When they were doing the dual sets, I really felt like the game and the setting was stagnating.
You guys probably know how I feel about Savage Rifts, and I'm not a Savage Worlds hater. That's Heathen Dog. I actually like Savage Worlds. I think it's a good game, but and it's not just Savage Rifts. I don't like Savage Battlelords. I don't like Savage. Games
Pathfinder.
I don't care about Pathfinder, but in terms of concept, I don't like that either. Pathfinder should be for its own system, which is D&D 3. Not because I think it separates a fan base. Now, if you want to say based on or reimagine for or something like that, and maybe I'm being very pedantic about terms, but Savage Rifts is not Rifts. The system dictates how the game plays. Can you have the same concept of bursters and juicers and crazies? But they're not going to feel the same, because system informs the setting. And I don't understand. If you're playing anime 5e is already anime. Sorry, I hate to tell you that, but it's already anime.
I actually know somebody who was playing one of the anime 5e classes in a regular 5e game, and he actually was like, I need to tone this class down.
Well, to be fair, anime is about going, go big or go home, right? But the point that I was making with that is that they're doing it for the money. I can't fault a businessman for doing things for the money, but I can say that corporations ruin hobbies. And there's a chat that I started that I'll get to when we do the super chats. Thank you for the super chat, Law Dog. I'll get to that, when it's time. But that will have me express that just a little bit more. So any thoughts on that before we go into the next question? I'll let you guys respond to everything that I was saying there. Okay. I just want to give you an opportunity to always have your say as well. You're the actual panelist. So, all right. So we are on to, I think we're back up to Patty. If not, well, that's who I'm starting with anyway. It's my show. I can do what I want. So how do you adapt classic game systems to appeal to contemporary players? And if you've done so, what has been the result?
So in my time in the Army, I always say that I'm a much bigger fan of one-shots.
Hold on. Patty froze on us.
Oh no.
Patty has frozen.
Wait,
okay,
there he is.
You're back. Okay, go. You said something about you've been a fan of, and then you trailed off into Robot Land.
Okay, so I've been a big fan of one-shots. When I was in the Army, having to deal with soldiers constantly PCSing and ETSing precluded me to running those if I wanted to have a successful game. Otherwise, I would get like campaign blue balls, right? You'd start one, and then like half the group would deploy or whatever. And so that's what I got used to running. When I was deployed, I was running a 3.5 Cthulhu D20 back with that product, and the easiest way I was able to get people into it was, of course, by use of the battle mats, and Cthulhu D20 I think was a really good way. of bringing people in because it was less fantasy. I've grounded our campaign in a real world scenario, and that removed the barrier for kind of stodgy soldier types that were like D&D is lame and for homo nerds. And then I started off like we made a table with some scrap plywood and 2x4s we found. We started playing in our hooch and in our big tent, and I started with 3 players, and like the very next month we had the entire tent was like watching us instead of watching Game of Thrones and waiting for somebody to have their character offed so that way they could take their spot, because I wouldn't run a table bigger than 6. I think the setting that you play in can be the biggest barrier for entry for some people, because I think about people like my wife or my mom who they just have a hard time conceptualizing and being able to interact with it on a role playing level in a world that they're not familiar with. For some people, it's like being day one baby. They're learning everything from the ground up because they either didn't watch fantasy movies or read fantasy novels and such like that. So less integrating technology, because I do think integrating technology can be a barrier, but I'm curious how that's going to work with the newer generation with Zoomers who are attached to their cell phones. I mean, if there's integrating Roll20 at the table just seems pretty sacrilege to me, unless you absolutely had to use it for distance.
So I think this is a good follow-up for you. What do you think drives the shift towards more narrative-driven versus the more mechanical-focused game?
I'm not sure. I think at its base, people do crave the mechanical nature of the game. And if they didn't, I don't think that websites like Giant and the Playground would have been as important as they were back then, with giving people articles to read, like how to build characters. Maybe that's less so now, given I don't know. It might even be more important with these articles that are like, oh, how to play Geralt. People are gonna like the mechanics. Building their characters is a big part of their mechanics. And then,
but let's be honest. Whether it started with the Hickman Revolution, which is something that I'm very, very much a proponent of. I love. I don't agree with literally every word that's written, but I think that is the best style of gaming of old, middle, and new. But in the modern sense, a lot of this narrative, like it's a story game. Forget the dice, just let them do what they want to do, or just come up. You see what I'm saying? Where they're trying to eschew, is that the right way to say the word? Mechanics. Yeah. Just for the story, and oh no, don't let the characters die, and yada yada. You get all the little trends. That's mostly Twitter and Reddit, but there's a trend in the game design that's leading that direction as well.
I don't know. So the way that I think about it is, yes, people don't want their characters to die. I think about it like a kid who gets access to Minecraft. The optimal way to play Minecraft is like hardcore survival, and then having to engage with the game that way. But and this is anecdotal. This is not empirical data. But like my son, I was playing Minecraft with him, and I loved playing on hardcore survival. Like every time we would go into a cavern to go fight monsters, it felt like a dungeon crawl, and I liked the danger of it. But then,
dude, you said you liked PvP-RP servers. That's what I played on as well. I mean, I get it.
His uncle came over one day and was like, "Oh yeah, well, let's turn on creative mode," and I was like, "Shut the fuck up."
What?
Shut up! You shut your mouth. And my son's like, "Oh, creative mode." And he goes, "Well, yeah, like you get access to all of the blocks and you can fly around and just build whatever you want." And I'm like, "Shut up!
What happened to earning it?
It's not a real thing." You know what I mean? And so, they want the cheat codes, because what he'll do is what most kids do. They'll give themselves the armor, then they'll spawn the creature they want to fight, and then they'll kick the crap out of the creature in a fight, even though that they cheated. And it's analogous to what people are trying to.
Oh, did he freeze again?
Yep.
Guys, again.
They're trying to shut him down. His words are too wise for us. He's back.
You're not in Canada, are you?
Yeah, players do want to roll dice. Everybody loves the meme of roll the nat 20. It's on shirts, it's in songs. As a matter of fact, like one of my favorite comedy singers, he's got the whole bit where he's like, that's a motherfucking nat 20, let's motherfucking go. They want to roll dice. They don't want just the story. They just don't want the negative parts that come with the story. They have to like the idea of rules. They just don't like being inconvenienced when the rules get in the way of them being successful.
Okay. All right, let's bounce down to Timothy Fairley over here. We'll ask him the same primary question: is how do you adapt classic game systems to appeal to contemporary players? And I'm going to give you an extra. Now, you probably have notes written, on this, and go with those. But if you were to run a Rifts game for somebody who's like, whoa, that's too much, let's start me off simple or whatever, or somebody with a more modern mind says, like, I'm not paying attention to all this crap here, I just want to play a game. How would you do that?
Oh, that one is an easy one. Because I did that on Free RPG Day, and I went a bit gonzo, but it's Rifts. So you start off with the basics, your attacks, your skills. This is what you use here, and I use the Rift Index has a campaign in there with the pre-made generator characters. Give them that, and so this is how I went gonzo. One of the pre-made characters is a pigman, heavy weapons expert, named Thomas the Tank. Yeah, well, our current generation. He goes, I'm going to be Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm like, you know what? I don't care. The guy's going to have fun. Why the hell not? So
it's
I
Rifts.
Max.
And this is why I struggle with Rifts.
Rough.
Max just can't say no.
Max, he died. And then the guy's girlfriend, she became Dora the Explorer, and the guy's friend was Diego.
I'm out. I've been through that. I'm done.
No.
So they're using the base Rifts characters.
No, but you're actually making a really, we're messing with you, but you're making a really good point. You're trying to get people into the game. It is a more modern audience. They want something to latch onto that they can do exactly what you're just doing a couple seconds ago, laughing and having fun.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah,
I don't like it, but I get it.
It's you got to adapt. You got to adapt it for who you're going with. And what I'm doing is I'm running this campaign with them as they are with Thomas the Tank and whatnot, and it's a bit extreme. It is gonzo, but I'm not over gonzo. I'm not pulling in like I normally do freaking gods to take on the characters because that's the only thing I can do. This is just I gave it a new. They're fighting the Holy Rodan Empire down here in Orlando. Eventually, they'll come down here to fight the Holy Rodan Empire. But what the whole idea is that once this is done, then they'll be interested in it again to do something more normal. Hopefully, maybe we'll see. But yeah, you do have to adjust it to your players, and I didn't even know these people when they sat down. So you got to be a little bit you got to be very flexible. You got to know your system, and you got to be flexible.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you a follow-up because I'm going to have you part of a general question in a little bit. I just think I haven't decided which one I want to ask Malachi. That's why. So Malachi, let's hit you with the question. How do you adapt classic game systems to appeal to contemporary players, and what has been the result?
I think the easiest way is just you got your rules. We'll just use like D&D, for example. You got your fighter class, your cleric. You take those rules, but you change the flavor text to something that they can relate to.
The fighter's boring. He doesn't do anything.
No, he doesn't. Well, you can use any weapon.
Well, you're wrong.
Nobody else can.
But I mean, can I leap 500 feet? Can I stamp my foot and have flames come out? And can I do something cool? Anything?
No, I mean, you have to get them to temper their expectations. Also,
your game's boring. And I'm doing that again. You know, I don't agree with what I was saying there, but I'm doing it because I'm trying to emphasize this whole,
You're right.
contemporary players, wanting the more. I hate to say it, but the more cartoony. I'm not saying that in a bad way. The thing is the more colorful, more fanciful, more cartoony style of showmanship around them.
And don't hesitate to kind of lean into that if the players are into that. The rules are there to facilitate play. How everything looks is up to the DM. That attack roll that hits can be anything you want it to be. If it's the last hit that kills the opponent, you're Aragorn and you just chop the guy's orc's head off.
But can I do a thunder strike that hits and then it knocks the people behind him over?
If you rolled that 20.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, that's a great way right there of using a house rule in a game. Be like, you know what? I'll give you some cool factor for it. And it's not in the rules, obviously, but yeah. So, I mean, that's what I was trying to pull out of you there is like somebody's going to disagree with that. Like, no, you should never change the rules and do that. But I think you can do that. If you're trying to cater to somebody who's newer, younger, is got the imagination juices flowing, wants to be more epic, so to speak, there's nothing wrong with giving that and then reining it in slowly.
Well, how do you rein it in after you've given it to them?
But if you're bringing somebody new into the game, into the hobby and stuff or into a certain game, you go Patty's route. You go one shots.
Yeah. Okay.
I share this story a lot. I was running a CNC game with three my buddies, and one of the guys couldn't make it for a session. Everybody else was there. I'm like, okay, here, I'm gonna run Savage Rifts. Here are the archetypes. Pick what you want. I know this adventure. I'll just run this. We can at least game. They fell in love with the system. They wanted to go from CNC to Savage Worlds. They liked it that much. That
might be a good way to get
great way just to get people to try something out.
And this is where I would say, sorry for interrupting, but this is where I'd say the Savage Rifts, the Savage Pathfinder, the Savage Battlelords, get your feet wet with the lore a little bit with a simpler game. Now let's get you into the real game. And if you've ever played Battlelords, look, you can complain about Palladium all day and all night. Psh, got nothing on Battlelords, baby. That's the crunchiest non-war game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, and then if you're let them go wild in a one shot, then when they get to get into a campaign, get into a regular character, then you can start reining them in because they'll have that brand new character. And then don't be afraid to have these large expectations in a completely different setting from what you normally run if you have a normal setting.
Now, one of the issues with having three people on that are generally considered OSR-ish type people is that we don't have somebody, we'll just say much younger, maybe with a different color of hair and might have pronouns written in their bios and so forth. But I'm still going to ask this question.
Go ahead. Do it.
How do the new trends in game design reflect broader cultural or societal changes? And this is open to everybody.
Look, so that's one of my missions. Is there is a significant amount of cultural decay. And it's so funny because a lot of my friends, they always like to make fun of culture warriors and such, and I'm just like, well, you can believe that, but I think I'm generally considered as one of the good ones because I know exactly what I'm aiming for. I'm a huge fan. If I'm gonna watch a TV show, a lot of people rewatch The Office or Parks and Recreation. I rewatch Hercules: The Legendary Journeys and Little House on the Prairie. You know what I mean? Those are my comfort shows.
See, when I was a child, I had a secret crush on Melissa Gilbert.
Yes.
Our MST3K. My main show.
I yearn for the days of Kevin Sorbo reigning supreme with Sam Raimi's direction as on TV. But
I didn't know that.
I think what had happened was I talked a little bit about this with somebody who was like the whole like literary analysis seems like a pyramid scheme for people who felt shitty that their fan fiction never became legitimate. And so now we've got literary analysts that have really guided the culture in a way that it's not healthy. I'd like to call it navel gazers, or too busy staring at their own belly buttons rather than putting in the work. When I was in high school, I was president of the Dungeons and Dragons Club. I was also in back then they called it the GSA, which was the Gay Straight Alliance. And I wasn't allowed back because it was one of those first like national stories of same-sex marriage being conducted in a church. And I was like, well, why would you want that to be conducted in a church? Well, because it's our right. We have the right. No, you have the right to get married. I would like to see that happen, but you don't have a right to tell a religion how they should be conducting their religion, or if you don't want to be if the church doesn't welcome you, why would you want to put one of your most romantic, significant days of your life where you promise yourself to somebody in a place that doesn't want you? I feel like you'd be so much better off finding another place. They didn't invite me back. And that was awkward because when I was growing up, that's when the gates started to open and a lot of the flooding started to happen. So I could find my high school yearbook and I could show you what my club looked like my senior year before I left versus just in the first year when I had started going to Dungeons and Dragons Club in freshman year. The diversity, if you will, of between those the 4 years of those pictures is widely different. There's more people playing. And then when I came back to visit after graduating to go grab some of my books, I come back to this Dungeons and Dragons Club and there's nobody playing the game. They're sitting down playing their Nintendo DSs. They're like playing Pokemon, or they were playing Magic the Gathering. And I'm like, well, that's funny because I remember this being Dungeons and Dragons Club, not Pokemon or TCG Club. And the club advisor was like, we just don't have anybody that wants to run games. Everyone wants to be a player. They don't know how. So I think that one of the best things you could do is to try to culture players. And if you could find people who have not played the game before, you culture them and you discipline them into what was good about the hobby and role-playing games, rather than letting this tumorous mass of DEI initiatives kind of indoctrinate them into the blue-haired thinking.
Well, it's weird because, back when we did rant videos constantly and so forth, I said this a lot in a much more shrill and if I need to, I'll go back to that. But I just don't think that that's the time. I think the time for that for me anyway is past. Oh crap! I forgot what I was going to say now.
Oh, no.
Hold up. I turned 51 yesterday and I'm losing my mind. No, you're talking about the DEI initiative, man. Oh, is back in the we were all weird, okay? Like, I don't know how old you are, but from the sounds of it, you started getting into the hobby after the Satanic Panic. I was in the hobby during the Satanic Panic. So I played my first D&D game in 1983 when I was 10 years old. Again, don't have to go in the history of it, but I really started getting focused on gaming and so forth in the late 80s when I went to Lutheran school. Where, if you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, you got extra Bible verses to memorize, things like that, because that's just that's what it was. But we were all the weirdos. I came, don't want to get in the history of it, I had family problems. Other people had whatever other problems going on, and this was a way that we escaped them. I have to say that, in my opinion, when D&D became mainstream and now being weird and being neurodivergent and having all these things as being celebrated instead of being ridiculed, or people, trying to get people help and so forth, that's actually more of a problem. People come in, like, you have to accept me. Like you were talking about the church thing. You don't change you don't change. This is why I don't consider myself Christian at the moment, is because you don't change the Bible for you. You have to change for the Bible. You don't change Dungeons and Dragons for you. You change for Dungeons and Dragons, or play a different game, make a different game, or just do your own thing at the table and don't worry about what the book says. That's fine. But stop with this, like you said, the DEI initiative and so forth. And I'm going to tie this in with something about riffs. One of the things I really like about riffs, even if it is way too gonzo for my taste, is, and Sean says this a lot, is riffs isn't about cultural appropriation like the 5 weirdos out there that cry about that stuff. It's about cultural appreciation. And the people within those cultures actually talk to Palladium and say, that was pretty cool. My wife and I, we did a few years ago, it's private, or it's not private, it's members only now, but we have a bunch of videos where we scrutinize the Asian nutcases over their coverage of Oriental Adventures. My wife is freaking Japanese, and she's like, what's the problem? It's just fantasy. Who cares? Well, they're crying about cultural appropriation. Shut up. Stop injecting that nonsense in the game. Oriental Adventures is based off 1980s ninja movies, okay? What did you expect it to be? That's what it was about. And I really think that bringing these real-world hangups is caused by it being mainstream now. It's caused by we have to accept everybody's nonsense out there. No, I'm sorry, not accept, celebrate everybody's nonsense out there. Instead of saying, you got problems, I got problems, let's play a game and have fun.
Yeah.
So I actually, it was funny, if I wanted new members into the Dungeons and Dragons Club, I had to write a memo that student would have to send back to their parents and get signed. Basically, it was a waiver that said, hey, this is Dungeons and Dragons Club. By the way, there was this thing called the Satanic Panic. That's not what we do here. And I had to have basically an open invitation for parents at any time to be able to drop into the club. And I did encourage that. I never had any takers, which made me sad. But yeah, I had to write memos and then be prepared to receive phone calls from parents asking me about the Satanic Panic. And we got one. But she was pretty milquetoast once it came down to it, and I think just the cut of my jib made her feel pretty safe as far as letting her kid engage in Dungeons and Dragons with the club. So,
Malachi or Timothy, you guys have anything on the whole idea of new trends in game design, how they reflect broader cultural and societal changes? Anything you want to add?
I think a lot of related to that, I think, is going to be I have much more to say in the next segment.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say, no, you had to send out memos. We were told no club. Yeah, I was in high school in the mid 90s.
All right, well, we will move on then to the next segment because Timothy Fairley already teased it and he's like all excited to get in there, so we'll do that. So next segment is going to be on community and culture, where, yeah, I guess we are going to dive into that more. Let's hit our chats that have popped up here. So Shark says, huge influence. Many gamers expect modules now to have gay balls, baristas at magic shop, coffee shops, and people being hot messes and getting their freak on with other characters. I think that ties into what we were just saying a moment ago.
My Saturday night games.
Bob Vecna says, catching up, what happens when your AI DM says you have an unapproved adventure idea? Sorry, you can't rescue the forced laborers because that topic is banned. Now you are too. I have been struggling with ChatGPT to try to get certain art out there because I wanted a savage gnoll looking all aggressive. It's like, that breaks our terms of service. I just want a gnoll. It's not real. It's a gnoll. It's a fake thing, and I just want it to look all mean. No, it'd give me a cartoony gnoll. It'd give me a gnoll with a smile. It'd give me no. I want a gnoll that looks like it's about to eat somebody. I'm sorry, that breaks our terms of service. Screw you, AI. Night Tide says the biggest thing that makes the hobby accessible to new people is digital tools. If Beyond didn't exist, the popularity of D&D 5e is greatly diminished, and I say good.
That
I know a lot of you guys don't agree with me on this, and that's fine. I don't like the amount of people that are in the hobby now. I don't, because they're not treating the traditions, the tropes, the concept of the hobby with any sort of respect. Everything you did in the past was wrong. Making your own stuff is good. I'm for that. Changing the stuff that we had is bad. Stop that.
I think it's one of those things. I don't necessarily have a problem with how many people that are into the hobby. Like I said, for every screeching blue-haired person that we don't like that wants to change the hobby, that's been hired or contracted by WotC to change what we love about that. Again, I think it's kind of a hypocritical notion to say you can't make D&D change while also saying you should run your table however you want, because they are going to run their table however they want. But the influx, right, because of mediums like Dungeons and Dragons becoming a cartoon or being put in, like every sitcom now has a Dungeons and Dragons episode. That bringing more normies in, there's going to be tons of people who are going to be watching the stream right now that are not in chat, that won't like the video, but they're watching and they're listening to us. And I was one of those guys. For the longest time, I didn't like anything on YouTube, because I was like, oh, I don't need to be feeding an algorithm that's just going to feed me trash in return, whether or not I like it. And I think about what was it that incited me to start publishing, because I only really made my presence known January of 2023. I mean, I started getting my Twitter account that had been a decade old at that point back. But it was Vengers banning for the Good Samaritan adventure. And after having read it, I was like, that's probably one of the most milquetoast adventures I've ever read, especially one that had to deal with the subject matter. And I didn't get it. And so I was just like, well, what a shame that Venger guy has to create in a vacuum, and then he gets his thumb pressed on by the people who publish his books. I'm going to go up there and I'm going to be supportive, and I'm going to let more people be aware that there's just reasonable people that want to like make crass jokes and have heroic adventures at the same time. So
like Conan.
Right. Well, there's a lot of disaffected people out there that don't engage with the hobby anymore because that's who I was. I didn't engage with the hobby anymore because I thought that was the norm. And I don't think that's true. Especially with like dead internet theory. There's just a lot of people that are hanging out outside that might catch a YouTube video once in a while, and perhaps a show like this or a book like The Good Samaritan or The Boy from Ez Tejas is going to let people know, like, oh yeah, this hobby can be for Christians or whatever. Jabroni Jeff Brony says only a Christian can play Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, the thing is what WotC did with D&D is it made it backward think. And that's a term we've used quite a bit, again, especially back in the rant days, is people say nonsense crap like, well, you can always just run it the way you want to. You can put it back the way. No. The idea is so when I say you can play what you want at the table, but I don't like these changes, my thing is the core books. Don't change the philosophy of the game. When 3rd edition came out, people who watched the stream have probably heard this a million times. Like, oh God, Mac's going to say it again. When 3rd edition came out, the first day I got it, I forget if it was playtest material or if it was the actual book. It was the actual book. The first day I got it, I opened it up and said, we no longer limit class based on race. I shut the book, threw it, and said, this is commie role playing. That's not Dungeons and Dragons. Built into Dungeons and Dragons are race class limitations. That is core to the game, something you can't change. Now, did they mess with it over time? Sure. 2nd edition allows more than 1st edition did. 1st edition allows more than basic did, but they still maintained those tropes. Well, we didn't want that rule in the game anymore because people weren't doing it at their own table. Then fine, let them do that at their own table. You are implementing backward think. Because now that you've opened it up, the expectation is you can be a gnome paladin. And the game master, have to now explain why you're not allowed to do that when it should be the other way around. You need to convince me why you can be a gnome paladin. It's backward thing. So this whole idea of like, well, people just, broke the rules. All the dwarven wizards, people played dwarven wizards all the time. First of all, it wasn't all the time. I played all over the world and I didn't run into that nonsense. Yeah, but people did do it. People came up with weird ideas. It was fun to use your imagination. Like, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It shouldn't be codified in the book and then expressed as, oh my God, you're colonialists and you're racist and you're ableist and you're bioessentialists and all this other bullshit that came out there because of the fact that the game actually had legitimate tropes, which, by the way, we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks, why those tropes are important on when we talk about humans, demi-humans, monsters, and aliens, I think beginning of September.
But if I
I'll
may,
stand behind. I'll stand behind my Kender Samurai.
No, but if I may, like you said, a lot of what what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of what persuaded Wizards of the Coast to take the game in the direction that they did was people who were talking online about playing the game with homebrew, right? Like you were saying. People were
they
playing
specifically said they were angry that people would say, I play Dragonlance, I play Forgotten Realms, I play Planescape. Yeah, we want people to say they play Dungeons and Dragons. Fully aware of that. Yeah,
exactly. So we say that, but it's like the playing hardcore rules as written. If we were able to maintain that when the game was incepted, we wouldn't be having the problem that we're having today in terms of this wide audience, because I think a lot of people have been like, okay, well, if some people play Monopoly the wrong way,
yep.
And now
perfect example, by the way. Perfect example.
What I'm saying is like one of the biggest you made one of the biggest arguments for why people should be playing raw and they should be reading their fucking manual, because if that's the baseline. Earlier we said there's the line in the sand, right? There's the conversation about the solo RPGs or whatever. It's like, okay, well that's not an RPG. Well, then anything else that you're playing isn't Dungeons and Dragons, and if you're not playing rules as written, then you're playing wrong. Because if you keep encouraging wrong play, that line, that Maginot line, is really what it feels like. It's just this constant, you know what I mean? And the grognards, which is really funny because grognards is a French word that I'm using Maginot line as an allegory here. The grognards just keep moving the Maginot line westward, and the people we don't like just keep moving in on our terrain. So well,
it's funny you say that people are playing wrong. We made a couple of videos about that in the past, again, members only because they're more ranty videos, but we actually have a video absolutely labeled "It's Okay to Play Wrong."
Yeah,
and in that video we described, you're playing wrong, I'm playing wrong, but we recognize that. And at our table, we never wanted the core books changed. But if we want to do something weird, we just did something weird. We recognize that we are playing wrong. This isn't how you're supposed to play. We're just having fun and doing an experiment. That's how tables work. But yes, we were playing wrong. 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I always say is like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's like you don't have to take shame that you homebrew something. But again, I do think that's a big argument for why you should just draw a hard and fast line. And so at some point, at some edition, everybody drew their line for what they consider is right D&D, because everybody says that what was it, coffee house girl simulator the RPG is playing wrong. It's like, okay.
I would argue though that in the past, before WotC, specifically before 5e, it was more tongue-in-cheek joking. Like, oh, you play baby D&D, you still in there in basic, oh, look at you. Where somebody's like, I play advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but we'd still be like, hey, man, there's a table over there for your group, have a great game, whatever. It was more tongue in cheek. Now people are trying to be like, no, you get out of my hobby. You can't come in my hobby, so on and so forth. Well, again, I blame WotC for this. If you want to play an open-minded, open-ended game, just make your own. Don't change what already exists. I don't understand why people don't get that. I'm reading some of the chat here. I don't understand why people don't get that. Don't fucking change the IP. Don't change what it was outside of clarifications and things to move forward. If you want your own thing that's all-inclusive, go fucking make it.
I do think it's particularly insidious that they're taking a setting like Greyhawk, A Faerun, I Forgotten Realms, am I right?
Yes,
I can take it or leave it. What is his name that made Faerun? Ed Greenwood or
Yeah, Greenwood.
Ed Greenwood, yeah, Forgotten Realms. Forgotten Realms is
that's the type of person that he is. So do what you want with Forgotten Realms. That's the reason why they're
But that's what that setting was for.
But
Forgotten Realms was for homogenization.
Yeah, Greyhawk is particularly insidious because what they've done is they've spent the past 10 years telling the old guard to get the hell out, but then they'll dingle the member berries in front of the new people. They're like, this is the D&D setting that your grandpa played, and now he's so far gone that he can't even tell the kids these days that's not Greyhawk. And yeah, they're basically just they're historical revisionists, if you will.
All right, I'm going to read a couple more chats. We got to get into the next segment. We are running crazy long today, but it's a great conversation. I do appreciate that. Law Dog for $5. Thank you for the $5. We are now $95 away from the giveaway. Legionmyth, you aren't being pedantic. It isn't riffs, not even a little bit. I agree with that. Inspired by riffs like I have no problem. If you were to say, you know what, I love the Earth Dawn rules. That's this guy drink. I love the Earth Dawn rules, but I want to run riffs in Earth Dawn. That's fine. I wouldn't call it riffs. I would say, hey, I'm running a riffs like game using the Earth Dawn rules. So yes, if you want to make a crazy, we'll figure out how to make that happen. If you want to play a Psy Stalker, we'll figure out how to make that happen. But I would never say I'm playing riffs. And that's how I feel about it. Now, to be fair, most of the people I know say they play Savage riffs. They don't say they play riffs when it's talking Savage World. So I guess I'll give them that. But moving on, Nagahide said, I'm not bending to the players. I just started a riffs game and someone was looking through the books and wanted the Sword of Atlantis. Flat out said no way in hell. Not happening.
Yeah,
this was back when we were talking about how to incorporate into more modern players into the game, like how would you cater to them and so forth. Nagahide says, "Screw it, just tell them no."
Yeah, I think what you were saying about D&D, that's where they really went wrong with 3rd edition. It's much easier to tell a player yes, they can do something than to tell them no, they cannot if it's already in the book.
Because then you'll end up with Thomas the Tank Engine running at coalition states. I mean.
This is probably for Patty, and I'll ask it. I don't normally take questions like this, but I figured I'd do this one. So, Patty, what is your opinion on scrapping alignments altogether? Actually, no, I guess this could be for everybody. What's your opinion on scrapping alignments altogether? But we'll start with Patty.
I think it's totally system dependent. Scrapping alignment from Dungeons and Dragons is a big mistake because, like Max said, that is a very important part of what Dungeons and Dragons culturally was, and the rules are very, very much a part of that. But I guess if you really wanted to broaden this term up, like you think about Vampire the Masquerade, and your alignment is how close you are to breaking the Masquerade. But in games like Gamma World, it's negligible at best. It's barely even a role playing tool at that point. So I think that moving forward, if you write a new system, you have to decide whether or not that alignment is important to how your rules are presenting the setting that's the game is meant to be played in. Like Horde Wars, DM Blackwell's Horde Wars. That game, and Blackwell will tell you that game is based off of heroism. That's the reason why you can't play a goblin. And you don't play
at my table. I'm gonna allow it.
Yeah, there. Well, I mean, specifically, there aren't evil options available to player characters in Horde Wars, versus I don't know. The game that I'm working on is a very basic game, and there will be setting specific books that take the core rules and then either limit them or expand them to fit a setting, and then they'll be totally contained in themselves. There's a particular setting that I think requires an alignment rules, but that's because I think, especially when you're playing with games like that have clerics and paladins, if you don't have alignment rules, then don't have clerics and paladins, and then we're
okay.
Cool. That's fine with me.
So Timothy and Malachi, I know you are both Palladium guys. What are your thoughts on scrapping alignments altogether?
I think Patty's got it right. It's definitely system dependent. Palladium, D&D, they're guidelines. You need them. Fallout, there's no mention of alignment in Fallout. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Fallout 4, but in the
No, the
old
Fallout,
ones, yeah.
the Fallout
top-
tabletop, there's no mention
Yeah.
of alignment. In
Yeah,
G.I. Joe, there's no mention of alignment. You're the good guys.
And if you do want to do an alignment, I think following Palladium and how they did it is the best way to go about it. One thing that D&D has messed up in all the editions is that it's changed so much and has been consistent. Where from line to line, Palladium is consistent with their alignments.
Yeah.
And it's like, you had Aberrant. See, I pronounced it right. This is what you can and can't do if you had that alignment. This is your normal can and can't do.
I hate alignments. I think they're stupid. However, with that said, if I run D&D, I'm going to use alignments, and you are going to play your alignment correctly. I'm not going to focus every minute of my day on that, but it's core. Patty hit the nail on the head. It is core to the game. That's another one of those things you cannot remove from the game and still call it Dungeons and Dragons, although they've certainly tried. Palladium, same thing. And I agree with Malachi and Timothy on that. If you're going to have an alignment system, Palladium is by far, without a doubt, even if you don't like the Palladium system, pull the Palladium alignments and you will have a much, much, much better game and less arguments over what it means to be chaotic good or lawful neutral or whatever, because it doesn't use those. But all in all, I hate alignments. Now, you mentioned Horde Wars. Say you got to be the hero. Earthdawn did the same thing. Earthdawn's like, the world's in chaos. You don't need any more jerkwads out there. You're the heroes of the game. Now, could you play evil? You absolutely could. There's no talent in the game that was stopped, that was blocked from you. But the game basically said you are supposed to be the heroes. The world is dark enough. It doesn't need more jackasses out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I should say, because Rob Namacon, one of my favorite guys that I follow on Twitter, and he's got his own YouTube channel. There should always be an evil option within an RPG. I think there should always be the allowance for players to engage in malignant acts. That should be an option, because that's part of playing the game. But insofar as, like, when I think about the Book of Exalted Deeds versus the Book of Vile Darkness, I hated the Book of Vile Darkness. I still do. And then in like the 3.5 DMG, when they had the prestige classes for Black Knight and Assassin, those were classes that specifically required a lawful evil alignment. I don't know. The secondary thing is knowing your audience.
Sure.
Like, I don't think that I would let my kids look at the 3.5 Dungeon Master Guide until they became much older, because it's like, I don't want them to have to learn about making lawful evil characters. You know what I mean? If they don't know that that's a possibility yet, I need them to learn how to be upstanding gentlemen of class and culture before they can engage in breaking social morals and such.
Now, I'm playing a gunslinger in space, and my gunslinger is a scrupulous, which is one of the good alignments for Palladium. But I was having a bad day that day, and one of my decisions was, we need to get rid of a couple of these bad guys for various reasons. My first thought was, I told the other players, I told them, wait here, and I was going to go and I was going to space these two guys. Oh no, and these were prisoners we captured, and they were handcuffed and everything, but I'm going to go space them. And my GM was like, time out, that's not what your alignment would says. Never attack or kill an unarmed foe. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, this is not what I would do. So this is why, if there's alignments, they're guidelines. They're there for a reason.
Yep.
help you.
Well,
make
and
good
Palladium
choices.
does such a good job of saying what your character may or may not do, or should I say should and should, will not do, whatever, basic. Because some of it's gray area, some of it's like, yeah, you'll do this. Some of it's like, you will not do that, depending on the alignment. I love that. I love the 14 points that it makes. So like, whether you take bribes, whether you'll kill an unarmed person, so forth. Why do you think so? If anybody's watched the Captain Max stuff that RPG's Dumb ran, why did I let Connell's character go once he turned into a bug and was attacking us? Because once I had a conversation with him, he had calmed down. I'm like, well, I can't kill him now because I was also scrupulous. All right, dude, I'm going to let you go. But if we see you again, your ass is grass, you know, kind of thing. And that's because people, why would you just kill? He was attacking you guys because he backed down. He dropped his weapons and he basically flittered off as Bugman. And, you know, that's what a good person would do, especially a good person who just got done nuking a village that we won't talk about. But anyway, we got to go on. Talking about Rob Necronomicon, by the way, he does comment on a bunch of our videos. I appreciate hearing from Rob. I did not know he had a YouTube channel, so I'm going to tell everybody right now that they should subscribe to his YouTube channel. I don't even know it's there. Just subscribe to it anyway. Don't care. I'm going to subscribe to it after the stream tonight. So I apologize for not knowing that he had a channel. So, but he says the whole ethos of old school gaming was doing your own thing after you understood the core rules. Ding, 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 ding. Winner of the internet for today. All right. And then we just got a $10 super chat in from Gunther the Man. Thank you very much for the $10, sir. In Canned Adventures, I find alignments to be incredibly useful so you know how to run the NPCs. Sure. Okay. I would counter that with, not that you're wrong, but that in games that don't have alignment, they usually tell the general temperament of the person. So, but an alignment can do that quicker, right? If you just say lawful evil or, you know, neutral good, that gives you a quick vision of it. I can see that. Thank you for the $10. Are you guys ready for segment three yet? I mean, we are crazy running over time on this one.
Always ready.
All right. Great discussion, guys. And by the way, I am reading chat. I cannot comment on everything that's going on in there. I appreciate all the spam. I mean, all the stuff you guys are saying there. It is great. And I'm also really happy to see a lot of the new people in here, people that at least haven't seen before, haven't seen in a long time. So our next segment is going to be on community and culture. I already mentioned that earlier. We'll say it again, though. And the charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national, non-partisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to the video's description for the link to where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. And I'll be doing a Veterans Day stream, 24 hours again. Those things kill me, but you know what? It's worth it because it will be all for the Wounded Warrior Project. And if you enjoy this discussion, please like this video, subscribe to all of the panelist channels, which you can find in the description.